I was filling the hummingbird feeder, the sweet syrup shining in the morning sun, when I looked up to see a woman walking across my gravel driveway, like she was annexing new land for some royal command. She had a crisp blazer, pearl earrings, and heels that clicked with determination. In one hand, she held a clipboard, in the other, a mug emblazoned with "I call the shots." Her name was Vivian Caldwell, president of the Homeowners Association, and she hadn't come for small talk. Without a hello, she pointed a manicured finger at my log cabin as though it had snarled in her coffee. "We're having your cabin host my daughter's wedding," she announced, her tone heavy with authority. "It'll be magical, you'll have to vacate by Thursday." I stood there blinking as she grinned a smile that seemed more like a coupon for a headache than a show of goodwill. Before I could answer, she turned to her wedding planner, a woman with a tape measure looped around her neck like a scarf, and said, "We'll have to redecorate that ugly porch something in ivory." It was strange to see these two strangers stride my land, measuring distances and steps, and judging my windows like they were on a flea market. I had no idea how they'd gotten past my locked gate. Vivian rattled off phrases such as, "You're doing this for the sake of the community," and "Imagine the photos, you're little hot," as a delightful rustic background. The planner's Bluetooth headset flashed like a distress call, as if she were transmitting orders to a wedding war room. They never asked for permission or spoke of pay. They just took my private woodland hideout for themselves. For a fairy tale photo session, I intervened between them, as Vivian unrolled a document and started reading in a voice that would have shut up a classroom per Article 9, subsection B of the Community Improvement Agreement. I interrupted her. "Vivian 1, which applies to HOA land. This cabin is on private land outside your authority." She glared like I'd spoken in tongues and laughed. "Surely you won't be the one to end a young woman's dream?" Her voice trembled on dream, and for a fleeting moment I wondered if I was being tricked on some reality show. "No," I said, stubborn. "I won't be." Her eyes narrowed and she moved closer, her perfume powerful enough to shave steel. "I can make your life very hard to live." She pushed a shiny folder into my hands, full of flower arrangement pictures and a seating chart. The cover in gold curlicue read, "Vivian's Wedding Vision." Her daughter's wedding wasn't just an event. It was a spectacle, complete with hot air balloons, a harpist, and a 5-tier cake tree stump shaped. She expected me to disappear for the weekend, allowing strangers in stilettos to trample my land for attention. I waited until their heels crunched away on the gravel, then closed my door with a satisfying thud. The hummingbirds buzz outside, mixed with the anger bubbling in my chest. I call my friend Jake, a forestry expert living a few counties away. Jake, who always had that pine scent and once trained his parrot to replicate the sound of a chainsaw, laughed until he gagged when I read him the tale. "Man," he wheezed, "ran out to someone like a collection of crazy people chainsaw collectors convention." It was a joke, but the term chainsaw stuck with me. A rapid search online directed me to Timber Tribe, a local chapter of chainsaw collectors starved for a location after their last facility burned during a barbecue disaster. Their forum was a saw emoji and log carving tips mess. I shared my property, and in a matter of minutes they responded, "Booked, we'll bring logs and trophies." Gazing at the confirmation email I caught on what I'd let loose, Vivian believed she'd receive violins and lace. Instead, she'd encounter a flannel-wearing horde with roaring machines. I took a sip of my coffee, smile spreading as I pictured her face when she laid eyes on her romantic wedding view, plagued by chainsaw mayhem. The following day, I nailed a sign on my gate, "Private event taking place, no trespassing." In smaller letters, warning high decibel. Machinery operating. I'd already obtained a noise ordinance waiver from the forestry department. Vivian would have her work cut out to battle this Thursday morning. The trucks came rolling in, monsters spray-painted with grizzly bears and chainsaws like out-of-this-world weapons. Men and women sporting safety goggles and lumberjack caps. So loaded gear like we're hosting a rock festival. The air grew thick with fuel and sawdust. One guy began carving a snarling wolf before his engine cooled. By 3 p.m., Vivian's white SUV screeched to a halt, vanity plates reading Queen, She stepped out, planter in tow, waving her clipboard like a scepter. Her jaw dropped at the sight of a man in suspenders sharpening a chain while humming an aria. Another stacked logs into what looked like an insolent move. "What is this?" she snapped, striding to the gate where I was waiting with a lemonade. "You shunned a wedding but greenlit this chainsaw circus." I waved to the crowd, private event gobblingly, a loud safety crew on standby. I nodded toward a sign, "Chainsaw Masterclass, free with RSVP educational." She gave like a stranded fish. "This is sabotage." "No," I said, "this is property rights. You attempted to steal mine, I just outplayed you." Her cheeks flushed, lips quivering between anger and incredulity. She stormed out to her SUV, kicking gravel onto her own feet. That evening, the chainsaw crew had a bonfire trading tales. Someone etched the HOA newsletter into a stump and cast it into the fire. We laughed until our sides hurt. I reclined stars above, realizing this was the best thing that ever occurred to my cabin. The sole wedding that weekend would be between horsepower and fuel. Vivian didn't know what sound lay ahead for her. Friday morning, still the prelude to pandemonium, birds tweeted oblivious of the tempest gathering. I came outside in slippers, coffee in hand, to the roar of a chainsaw ringing the pines. The first workshop was underway. A bearded man named Caleb, with a Viking-esque look, Flamic sunglasses included, showed them how to slice logs kickback-free. The audience applauded as he sliced pine like butter. Then I heard Vivian's SUV crawling up the gravel, intentional as a stalking predator. She brought her backup, her daughter Elise, dressed in a fragile ivory gown and useless boots, and 2 HOA board members, including Roger, who used to fine me for a code-violating green mailbox. Vivian, taking video on her phone, complained about noise pollution and criminal vandalism. She stormed at me, heels piercing the earth. "Shut this down now. You're breaking ordinances and destroying a wedding." I handed her a folded document from my flannel pocket. "This is a county noise exemption for educational forestry events. Check the seal." She held it like it was toxic, her face twitching. Roger shrugged uselessly. Elise, meanwhile, stared at a bear sculpture and whispered, "That's actually cool." Vivian spun on her. "You are not admiring that." Elise blinked, doubt creeping into her eyes. Vivian attempted another pounce. "You're blocking public footpaths." I countered, "That land's mine, annexed last year at auction. Want the survey." She didn't defeated. She called an emergency HOA meeting, announcing it with flyers decrying violent disruptions and inappropriate tool usage. I nearly choked on my sandwich laughing. Caleb offered to carve a beaver, gnawing a chainsaw for the occasion. The meeting, held in Vivian's lemon-polished living room, was a farce. She stood like a general, accusing me of malicious disruption. I pointed out her wedding was unapproved, and her bylaws didn't work. Then Tom, the HOA treasurer, broke the news. Vivian's bid to expand HOA jurisdiction had failed last year, and her notices featured forged signatures. Gasps rang through the room. Someone taped it. Another breathed. "Is that fraud?" Vivian stuttered as the crowd dispersed. By morning, the video was all over local Facebook pages with captions, "Vivian tries to chainsaw democracy." She came back that afternoon glowering from her SUV as the chainsaw crew cut a huge eagle. I politely waved the buzz of saws calming behind me. The event had transformed into a family festival with children observing carvers, and a coffee stand classified log fuel. Saturday was in fever dream. Chainsaws boomed at dawn, the air heavy with pine and oil. Onlookers brought lawn chairs. A food stand sold bacon sticks beside a man selling chainsaw taro. Vivian made her last stand, appearing with a full wedding party. Caterers, florists, a harpist wheeling a gilded instrument. Elise, mud-splashed in her champagne dress, looked wretched. Vivian ordered tents erected on a slope. I'd purchased at auction after the HOA defaulted on taxes. I faced her with the deed, "You're trespassing." She laughed. "This is community event space." I presented her with the property transfer. Certified letter was mailed. "Perhaps you were too busy rewriting bylaws?" Her smile disappeared. Elise was appalled. "This is absurd," Vivian snarled. "We have vendors, guests, a harpist. I don't mind if you brought a circus." I said, You're on my land. The sheriff deputy Harlan arrived already a fan of the chainsaw events, bacon skewers. I showed him the deed. He nodded. Ma'am, clear out. This ain't your property. Vivian's face turned shrimp pink. The least near tears muttered, This is a nightmare. The harpist wheeled away. The florist dismantled garlands. Vivian screamed about hostile neighbors as her crew fled. That evening, the chainsaw festival soared. A carver created a life-sized eagle titled Freedom of Saw. Vivian's meltdown, Memed. Her sacred event line mocked mercilessly. Sunday's finale brought Sawdust Sam, a legendary carver whose dragon-wrapped cabin sculpture based on local drama took first prize. He presented it to my porch. Roger, the HOA vice president, quit whispering. Vivian's term wouldn't make it through the week. The following day, an environmental agent, Torres, filed a report on an anonymous noise complaint. My permits checked out, impressing him. Vivian watched from her SUV, defeated, then drove off. Neighbors swamped me with cookies and admiration. A cedar plaque came naming me an honorary independent land steward. At the HOA vote, Vivian was voted out in a landslide, leaving her pearls on the table like a dethroned crown. She relocated to a beige mailbox community seeking control elsewhere. I erected a sign, Private Property Chainsaws. Welcome weddings by written apology only. My cabin, now a symbol of defiance, stood silent under the stars. The dragon guarding a tough one-piece Vivian had desired, unforgettable. She received it, just not as she intended.